Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing okay, as usual. Today I'm gonna do another sound. It's gonna be my third tutorial. If you haven't checked out my previous ones, I'll leave a link down below, and you can find that also at the top of the cards where I suggest them in the videos. So the sound that I'm gonna make today is from my Kompa synth, well actually my Kompa exercise, my third one, and a lot of people have been asking me how did I do that sound. It's a pretty unique sound because you can do solos with it, and also you can comp with it, or in Creole we call it accompagnement. So if you don't remember, I'm gonna just play a sample of it just so you have a reference sound. Alright, so now that you have the reference sound, we're gonna start with our usual process. I'm gonna just create an initial patch, and if you're on your DAW or your own keyboard processor, you could sort of follow along with similar sounds. Now, in one of my previous tutorials, I talked about TVF. Okay, now in this video, I can sort of explain what it does, and then I also have a few other concepts that are gonna be important to know about in this tutorial, and I might actually do more videos later on explaining more about what these filters do and how they work. So right now I'm just categorizing my sound. I'm gonna put it in the softly category, and so what TVF is basically is a time varying filter. Okay, so let's say you hear a tone play in its natural element. What the time varying filter does is you can vary the shape of the sound as you hold the note, like per duration. So let's say you hold a note and it goes duh. So like that same neutral sound over time, you can vary it so that it could sound lower or higher depending on what you're trying to get. All right. So here I'm just doing my tone manipulations. I'm gonna add, it's really 2 or 3 different sounds that are mixing together. So for my first sound is actually a pad. It's a soft pad sound, and on the Fantom it's patch number 1087. And I'm gonna play them individually as usual, just so that you have a reference sound of what it sounds like. And then what I did is I added the first sound into the first layer on a mono channel, and then the second channel I basically did the same thing. I added the same pad. So basically I'm gonna layer three pads of the same sound, and it kind of gives it like a 3D layered effect. All right, and so in the beginning of this sound, I found a tone that was already built in the Fantom, and then I just kind of manipulated it and added more color to it to sound more Kompa like. Remember, you can always manipulate a sound to your liking, so always have that in your back pocket. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another sound towards the end, and it's patch number 293 on the Fantom, and it's basically like a harpsichord sound. So you can hear it right there, and it gives it that clicky nature, right? So I wanted to make sure that the sound was like poppy. I wanted it to kind of pop and have like some vibrance to it. So that's why I decided to add that. And I added the guitar sound mono again on the left side, but then what I did was I added the same guitar tone to my other layers, so layer 1, 2, and 3, and I put those on the right side of the speaker. So that way it kind of gives you like a very complex layered 3D effect, and it's really cool when you hear it through a headphone especially. And then for the fourth and final layer, I added another pad, but this time it's patch number 1086. And this pad, the only difference is the fact that it sounds lighter than the first pad. So I guess it was just a nice little detail that was necessary for the sound. It's perfectly fine if you don't add another pad, it's up to you. And no, y'all, I didn't add an organ this time. This sound doesn't have any organs. So now I'm just going to give it a patch name. You can name it whatever you want. Just make sure that you have it stored somewhere that you can find it easily. And while I'm doing that, don't forget, if you have Instagram or Twitter, you can follow me at PetitGoo. And if you have, by any chance, decide to use this sound for a song that you're making or a concert or jam, whatever it may be, feel free to tag me. It'd be interesting just to hear your playing skills using these sounds. And that goes for all the other videos too. And my albums that I make are sample albums, so you can also feel free to use those materials just for practice. I just released them all on Spotify. I'll put the links down below so you can find that. So this is what the sound is like so far. I didn't tweak too much underneath the sound. You have all your wave gain options, and you can just follow them through the screen. Alright, so here's the part of the video where the sound constructing kind of goes a little advanced. I'll try to go as slow as possible, but also note that as I mentioned before, I will be making a video most likely in the future, just further describing how these filters work. Alright, so the very first option that I have here is the pitch environment time. And I'm just gonna add a few settings here. In the first row, I'm just gonna add 25 to it, and then I'll play a sample of it just so you hear it. And in the fourth row, I'm just gonna add 25 as well, and that's to manipulate the sound at the fourth time point of the sound. And then of course I'm going to put a -20 for the pitch environment level 1. Alright, and I'm just going to play it here so you can hear it. But these filter options are optional. You don't have to add filters if you don't want. You can keep it very simple. It's just, if you really want to get it to sound like the way I have it, you got to put in the work, basically. Alright, here we have our TVF, of course. So the first thing is I'm going to add a setting to it, the package setting, to all 4 tones. And it comes pre-built to Roland. I believe the TVF features here is specific to Roland. Might have it in other DAWs as well, but I'm not too sure about that. For the first 2 tones, I'm going to add 26 cutoff frequency. And then for my third tone, I'm going to add 36 for the cutoff. And then I'm going to cut off the 4th tone at 100. And you'll be able to hear the difference when like you hold the note down. All right, now for the resonance, for the first two tones, I'm gonna put it at 39, and then the third one is just gonna be 33. Fourth tone, leave it at 0. You know, feel free to mess around with it too if you wanna change it to your liking. I kind of hear it like when I strike the notes and hold it, it has a lighter feel towards the end of the notes. Yeah. All right. I'm just double checking. Add +10 for the TVF environment velocity sensitivity. And just do that across all sounds. And then keep everything else simple, straightforward afterwards. Now, we have the TVF environment settings. As far as the depth goes, for the environment, put it at +25 across the board. And for the TVF environment time 2, you're gonna set it at 57 for the first 3 tones. And then the final tone, tone number 4, you're just gonna set it at 75. And then the TVF environment time 3, I'll show you in a minute here. We're gonna set the first 3 tones to 72. And then the final tone, again, is gonna be 75. And TVF environment time 4, just set it at 70 across the board for all 4 tones. For the TVF environment level 2, I'm gonna make the levels 72 across the board. No, sorry, 76 across the board. And then I'm gonna add, I'm gonna make the last tone 100. So the first 3 tones 76, and then the last tone is gonna be 100. And then for the environment level 3, I'm just gonna make the sounds 50 all across the board. And then, of course, it's important to always test your tone throughout the process of doing these filters, just to make sure you get the desired effect that you want. I already pre-registered all of this, so I'm just doing it for tutorial purposes. But take your time with this process. It shows in your sound when you take time. Now I'm just tweaking the TVA filter, and this is where you're gonna get the real nature of the tone that you hear, the dragging guitar and pad sound. This is where you're gonna get it. So for the first row is my time level. I have the first tone at 127, the second at 96, the third at 76, and the fourth at 127. The level velocity sensitivity is going to be 21 positive across the board. set the bias direction to upper, and then set the tone pan for the first tone 64 to the left, and then the second tone 63 to the right, and then you can zero out the rest of the two tones. This is just the first half of the TVA. Now in the next part we're going to do the TVA environment, which is going to drag the tone out. Just playing it for you to hear. Alright, so the first thing is tweak the TVA environment time 2. For the first 3 tones, make it 50, and then the 4th tone, make it 80. And then the TVA environment time 3, you're going to set it to 80 across the board. Now here's where we drag out the tone. For TVA environment 4, we're going to set the first tones to 55, the first 3 tones. You hear it? Alright, and then the last tone, leave it at 60. For the TVA environment level 1, leave everything at 127, all the tones. For TVA environment level 2, leave the first 3 tones at 117, the final tone at 127. And then TVA environment level 3, leave the first 3 tones at 0, and then the last one at 127. It's coming along smoothly. Now, I didn't go too crazy with output settings. I believe this is what the tone sounds like when you try to record or when you play live. So I'm just gonna add some reverb and chorus. It's perfectly optional. So I just added 39 for the first 2 tones, and then 65 for the third, and 0 for the last. And then for the reverb, I added 31 for the first 2 tones, 44 for the third, and then 25 for the 4th tone. But we're also gonna add additional effects towards the end of this tutorial. You won't really hear it right now, but it'll show towards the end. And at this point, it's perfectly fine if you want to skip towards the end where I add effects, because the rest of the stuff is just optional stuff to make it sound more sophisticated. Alright. Right now, I'm going to be tweaking the LFO settings. Set your waveform to triangle. Your rate, you're going to set it to 93 across the board. Fade mode, leave it on. Your fade time, you're going to leave it at 0. The only other thing that I changed here was the key trigger. The first 3 tones you want to leave on, the last tone you want to leave off. We're almost there. I'm just gonna save it. It's very important to save throughout the process, because you never know, you might get a power outage or whatnot. I've had some bad experiences, and I'm just gonna rename it. I had it as a Kompa solo, but it's really a Kompa pad, because you can solo and you can do the accompagnement with it. I know a lot of church musicians might want this sound too when you play Kompa in the church. These tips are pretty useful because I know the sounds that come preset in keyboards are usually harsh for your church speakers. Alright, now I'm tweaking my second LFO settings. In the waveform, we're going to set it at square for the first 3 tones, and the last tone we're going to leave it at triangle. Set the rate for the first 2 tones, sorry, to 16th to 8th notes. The third tone, you're gonna set to 16th notes, and then the 4th tone, you're gonna also set it to 8th notes. And that's just for the trigger specificity. And then I'm gonna offset the third tone to -50. The next thing I'm gonna trigger is the key trigger. The first 3 tones are gonna be on, and then the 4th tone is gonna be off. And then the TVF depth, I'm also gonna zero out all the tones except for the third one. I'm gonna add a +6 to it, which you'll be seeing soon. The TVA depth is gonna be +40 for the first 3 sounds. The 4th tone is going to be 0, and then the pan depth, everything is going to be 0 except for the 3rd tone, which is going to be +7. In my first tutorial I talked about Portamento, but here we're not going to go crazy with it. So but it's up to you. If you want, you can add some Portamento. It's just not really meant for that. So I left the Portamento time at 0 and just kept it normal. Now let's add the effects. This is my routing here, and the first thing I'm gonna do is just add the main effect. It's just gonna be a simple phaser. And immediately you can start to hear the sound that I had. Hear that? In the main setting, just set the mode to 8 stage, manual, just leave it at 64, resonance 60, crossfade 40%, and then the mix, just make it to 42, and then leave the level at 127. For the rates, you're gonna set it to 0.5 hertz. The depth, you can just set it to 63. And polarity, just leave it at synchronized. Low gain 0, high gain 0. And if you decide to tweak it, I'd be interested to also hear your variation on this sound as well, if you decide to do it a different way. And remember, if you think this is a long process, just remember it takes work to make a good Kompa sound. Alright, now I'm just gonna add a standard delay, and then you can switch it up. But for the left, I'm playing 16th notes. The center, I'm gonna play quarter notes, and then the right, I'm gonna play 8th notes. Everything else, you can just leave it at 127. Nothing fancy. There also comes a point in time where you have to make a judgment call. Oh yeah, I'm adding 54 level for the delay. Yeah, there comes a point in time where you gotta also judge whether you should keep adding effects, because you don't want it to be too complicated either. Alright, now for the third effect, you can just add a standard studio reverb. And I'm just going to tweak the settings. Set the pre-delay to 20 milliseconds. Time, we're going to put it 1.8 seconds. Level, set it at 100. Frequency 20 hertz, yep. And then frequency, you're just going to add 6,000 for the damp. And then 10,000 hertz for the high set. Keep everything else. And then for the overall level, just make sure that your reverb is at 75. That's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Keep an eye out for for more tutorials. Also, check out my new music video, BlancheBlk, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be posting more stuff in the future. Thanks again, and have a good one.